Hey everyone, I wanted to recognize our sponsor, Traver Connect. Two words ring true for all of us in the automotive service space: the phones. When we hear those words, we instantly all sigh. Because as much change as our industry has seen, we still getting overwhelmingly amount of calls. No need to sigh though. That's where a good BDC comes in handy, doesn't it? I know the team at Traver Connect personally, and these guys get it, and they can help you build your service BDC. Or you can use their team to catch the calls you miss from well-trained team of agents that they have. Or have them make outbound calls and set new appointments. Give Traver Connect a call today. As they say, revenue doesn't leave a message at the beep. Reach out to the team at Traver Connect at traverconnect.com. Dynatron Software is also an important sponsor for the Fixed Ops Mastermind podcast. As both technology and the auto industry continue to evolve, every dealership needs to ask themselves a very important question. Am I in the forefront or stuck in the past? Dynatron Software offers the latest in data analytics, business tools, and pricing optimization. Contact them for more info. Sales at dynatronsoftware.com. Guys, as always, help spread the message of the Fixed Ops Mastermind podcast. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. That helps us to spread the word. Also, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app. Get the new episodes as soon as they're released. And now, here's another episode for you. Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Mastermind podcast. Today, we are excited to have with us John Traver, CEO of Traver Connect. For those of you in the automotive world that don't know John, John has been around for a couple of minutes in the automotive space. So, John, welcome, and why don't you just give a little introduction to yourself for those who may not know you?
Hey, Dave. So good to be here, buddy. Thanks for having me.
It's awesome. We are excited to have you here.
Well, you say, hanging around. If you hang around long enough, eventually, something good could happen. And I've been fortunate to run with some great, great people. And I'm thankful to be here. Looking forward to our talk today.
Absolutely. We'll start out with something outside of the automotive world. So what's something you like doing besides building these successful businesses?
Well, I do enjoy being inside of the businesses that I'm fortunate enough to be part of and the people in them. When I'm outside of the business, I'm usually preparing to be back inside, and so like I have areas I get to do stuff where I call it my thinking time. I love improving things, Dave. Projects. I love the outdoors. So things that put those two together are always high on my enjoy to do list. I grew up in southeastern Wisconsin, and Brett Favre was, around in the 90s and early 2000s. I loved Brett, and I remember something he said in a interview one time. They started squeezing him a little bit, and Aaron Rodgers was drafted, and he said, "Hey, I got my tractor." And I thought, he has this 500-600 acre place in Mississippi in Kiln, and I thought, you know what, he nailed it. And so I have a tractor at the house. I got a little acreage, and we've had some agricultural properties over the years. I grew up on a farm in southeastern Wisconsin. So if it's a weekend and you don't get me right away, I'm probably on a John Deere 6130M, doing something. How's that? Running a chainsaw, fixing something. But that's my thinking time,
Love it. I do the same thing. So mine's a Kubota, but a tractor nonetheless.
Absolutely. Great product.
Always good to get out there, and it's just some. If you're running the chainsaw, it's not mindless time, but on the tractor, a lot of times it's mindless time where your mind can just wander and come up with some new ideas for things.
Well, now I know who to call on a weekend when I'm, short on free help. I just need to figure out how to get you from the East Coast to Dallas.
Yeah, that's that's sort of free.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Um, so what got you started in automotive, John? Most of us did not start out looking to be in automotive.
I was paying my way through college. I was growing up in southeastern Wisconsin, and I learned a lot in the dealership. 1986 is when I got started, and I was in sales at Wild Dodge. My girlfriend's father had entreed me to their dealer group, the Wild Group, and it wasn't his store. He felt like that would be, too close to home. But I interviewed at the Dodge store and seemed like I got interviewed by everybody but the parts manager and got the job, And one of the things I remember, Dave, about that time, you know how you would have these workshops, and it was a Dodge store, so it was Dodge coming around saying, "Okay, you got to attend this service seminar or this parts seminar or this F&I seminar," and nobody ever wanted to go to the workshops, But they knew, like, I would go to every workshop. I just thought it was fascinating that I could see the macro of the business that quick, and sort of learn how it's assembled the pieces of the puzzle. So I love to compete in sales. My first month, I almost got fired. My girlfriend came to visit me on a Saturday, and Dick Hattenauer, my GSM, called me in his office, and he said, "If you don't sell a car today, I'm going to fire you." And I thought, if this guy can do this, I might be able to, own one of these things one day. I was super in my head. I was so put back by what he said, and it was really the boot in the rear end I needed. The next month, true story, I was salesman of the month. That was June, and in July, I was salesman of the month. I love to learn. The Russ Darrow Group called me after that, and they were also a large group, about 12, 13 stores. Russ himself said, "Look, I'm looking. I look at a lot of your training stuff you're doing for us." I had a separate company by that time, and he gave me opportunities to see the macro systems within the industry. And I work for an incredible guy, Dave, in Russ Darrow. I'm grateful for him, especially at that stage of my career. You probably have people you think of too, right? That, wow, if I hadn't met that person at that time, who knows, right?
Absolutely.
So those were formative years for me and kind of helped me decide, where and how I could contribute. I remember the Pat Ryan guys, Dave, would come in, and they were F&I guys, and they were dressed in the nice suits, I just thought, I got to figure out what they're doing, right? But during that time, I learned about the huge gaps that, you spent a ton on advertising. You didn't spend 2 cents on the staff to convert those leads into opportunities. And that's kind of where I got my start, brother. That's how it started.
Yeah. And it's about being able to see those obstacles, right? It is knowing, not just seeing the problem, but being able to see through that and see the road to a solution is what has helped you get to where you are.
Yeah.
You can't just see the problems. You've got to be able to understand that there's a problem there that needs to be solved, and you need to arrive at the right endpoint to actually solve that. So, what do you think is in you that has allowed you to see your way to those solutions through those obstacles?
I think it's beautiful how you went to the visual part, seeing the problem. I think my intention was, A, to see it, to identify it, and then B, to always make something better. Like we talked about, what do we do in our spare time, right? Not just change it for the sake of changing. So there's guys and gals that can design stuff, Dave, but it might not have practical application. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes.
And so there's a wisdom piece, I think, too, that I somehow, by the grace of God, whatever, picked up early in my career. So when I think of disruptive innovation, I think it's in that spirit of improving things. So I'll just share some with you. So my first real company was Traver Technologies, and I sold that to ADP in 2000. And I thought about, okay, what was it that I was really trying to do? And honestly, I was answering one question. So this is like 1992, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The question I was answering was, how can I help improve a customer experience that is outdated in the dealership? Like I was still witnessing the keys to the trade being, thrown on the roof. I'm sorry, sir, we can't find your keys. Or just go back and tell him, or if I could, would you? And I thought, you have Consumer Report, Motor Trend, Car and Driver, customers more educated. In 82, there were 200 vehicles and models. By 92, there were over 900, so they had more choices. It was like they weren't keeping up with the times. So really the question we were answering under BDC, Dave, was how do we improve an outdated process? So there's this gap. I bought a company in '04 after I sold to ADP. I thought I was going to leave ADP, and it ended up being an investment for 6 years until I would eventually leave. So 91 to 2000 was Traver Tech, and we worked with Toyota and everybody. And so we grew with the BDC and our BDC software and training. Then 2000 to 2004, I was at ADP overseeing that and another business unit. And I buy this company called XPS, and they're in the self-storage space. And my thought there was, how do we create a front counter experience over the phone with people that we can't see? And so it was another BPO. And then in the same year, I bought a pretty good sized piece of property outside of Houston and named it Third Day Ranch with my wife. And the question there was, how do we contribute to the protein cycle? And so there we started with cattle because that was the most obvious way. And it was commercial. Then we went registered, but we were improving the ground. And I'll just real quick tell you that while I was doing that, there were, key metrics I was using, and it was dollars per animal unit is what they teach. And I believe you can learn anything you want, right? So I was seeing this opportunity to answer that question. Well, we end up sprigging ground, implementing irrigation, and I'm about, 2004, 2007, 2008, around that time. And we are harvesting hay from improved ground now, and there weren't animal units on it. It was actually just improved hay. So I had to do dollars per acre. And so this is really a key point, okay? So I was like, wait a minute, what if I did dollars per acre for animals? Just like you do in service. Think about it. Like sometimes you got to twist it a little bit, right? And so, Dave, what I found is the difference in revenue was 7 to 10 times higher with forage. And I thought, well, wait a minute. What was my first question? How do we contribute to the protein cycle, right? Well, guess what? What does high quality forage do?
Increases protein.
Correct. It feeds animals that create protein. It's part of the cycle. We were still in our sweet spot. We hadn't left it. We found a better way to do it. And again, very fortunate. We got a phone call from a Fortune 300 company. At that time, they were Fortune 500, a company called Tractor Supply. And you might have one near you.
We do.
And they are basically the Walmart of that space. They're now a Fortune 300. It's $150 stock. It's split twice over the last 10 years. Over the last 20 years, it's the number 2 growth stock in the world. Look it up. Yeah, I know. It's just crazy to see what they've done. There is no insider trading going on here, by the way. I don't own a stake. But that was that. And then at Traver Connect, what we're saying is we're asking ourselves, how do we positively impact the customer experience beginning at the point of contact? So what I'm trying to show you is this. Your question is, how do you see it? And my answer to you, brother, is this, and anybody listening, is you start with a question and you always test the question. And what I'm saying to you, black and white, the question will guide you. In other words, how do we find those gaps, right? If you ask good questions, Dave, you will get good answers. If you ask weak questions, I got bad news for you. So there you go. I mean, Tractor Supply today at Third Day is, we're in multiple states. We're the second largest forage producer in the United States for Tractor Supply. And it started with a question. XPS handles interactions with thousands of properties across the U.S. And Traver Connect, we're answering coast to coast. We have a software as a service for BDCs and stores. I think we've innovated some things in the customer experience that I didn't see even getting into it. I didn't have all the answers. So that's my answer to your question.
And that answer makes perfect sense. It is You answered my question by saying that you need to ask good questions to get you to the point where you can see the vision and arrive at the right solution for those things. And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with. I think I mean, we've always been taught when we're growing up, right? You don't answer a question with a question. And yet some of the best answers are because of the question that was asked.
Mm-hmm.
So in that same string of thought there, so you started looking to improve a customer counter experience, you said. And so
At
and you were
XPS, yeah,
at
XPS,
XPS, yeah.
it was that. But in automotive, it's that first touch,
Yes.
with
Yep.
service, because it's an important touch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Absolutely. And so you were trying to improve an outdated system. That's where I
Oh,
was
with
trying to
Traver
pull out of my head.
Technologies. Yep.
Yes. So you were trying to improve an outdated system, which I think we're coming back around to that again in automotive with a bunch of things that we do that are outdated again. And not necessarily on the BDC side, but things that we're doing store level. So how do you see the future of fixed operations changing? And not from really the BDC side of things, because I think that is a part of the business that has evolved. And there's obviously more evolution always available, but on the store level, what do you think is going to be different in fixed operations that 2020 didn't already force a bunch of dealers' hands on?
This is a good question, Dave. So I got a couple perspectives on this. I think first of all, it looks bright to me. It looks bright to me because the amount of energy being put into innovating our space for customers is massive, right? Customer experience, you got mobile payments, you got texting, you got kiosks, I mean, we could go on and on here, and you're probably going to hit me with the kiosk question, I bet. And that's cool. But the key thing is, why is it hot? And it's hot for a couple reasons. One is 50% gross profit or better. Okay. So it's loud revenue for the store, very loud. And, customer pay is in the till tonight, right? We're not waiting 90 days for that money. So, I mean, this is a big part of it. The second thing, though, that I would say to you is anyone that looks around in what we're doing in service, they'll recognize the speed of business. It requires innovation. And here's what I would say to you. I had a call earlier today with a vendor who's maybe an allied partner towards us. And they had asked me, I said, what's your take on the space today? And I said, back in the 90s, like, if you really had enough information and you were really committed to your business, you could pretty much have a 10-year strategy, and you could probably be pretty close to it if you executed. And I said, would you agree? And they said, yes. Very, very bright gal, very bright. And I said, today, my opinion, I think if you have the right information, you have enough experience, you have enough wisdom, I think long-term is 3 to 5 years. Yeah. And the reason is the iterations, what's going on around you. It's like the average person is living in a 12-month strategy. Like, okay, this year we're going to do this. And they call that strategy. And that's not a knock. It's just, okay. So another way to illustrate this, I've shared this before, maybe with some that listen to this, but if you look at the Forbes Fortune 500, okay, and I love that. I love watching this. 2011, Exxon, GE, GM, Ford, all companies highly regarded, right? Look at 2020, only 2 of the top 10 were still there, and none of the ones that I just mentioned were in that top 10. Yeah. So, it's like, does that mean that, they're horrible? Or no, that's innovation. That's what's happening around you. So I think my advice to anybody listening is Bezos calls it day one thinking, right? So what day is day one? Every day.
Every day.
Every day is day one. And then, if you're not thinking this way, the only thing I would promise you is this: someone else around you is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the that's the way we've always done it is a phrase that I don't toss around the word hate very much, but I hate that phrase. That phrase just reeks of stagnation to me,
Yeah.
and of somebody who is satisfied, if you will, with where they are, and not even thinking about day one thinking. They are perfectly okay with the way it is, and even if it's bad,
Yeah.
they're okay to say, but that's the way we've always done it. So let's keep doing it that way.
You know what, Dave? For anybody listening to this, just in case they missed out on what you and I know day one thinking is, let's clarify it for them. I mean, day one, if you remember day one in any venture you did, it was an exciting time. What was possible? Anything. What was your approach to change? Whatever it takes, right? All those things, that was your spirit. I mean, you walked in with it. And I just want to say, anybody listening to this, if you know Dave, if you don't know him, this guy lives, eats, and breathes that attitude. You do, Dave. You have that about you. You're living in it. You're executing it daily. You got it. And, hey, that's what it takes. That's the entry fee,
Yeah, there definitely is an entry fee to be paid. That's for sure. And you have to be willing to continually pay that.
That's right.
There's a lot of entry gates as you move along. So you got to keep paying that fee and keep innovating and keep looking forward. There were a lot of places, a lot of dealerships, companies in general, but I'll speak from what I know of dealerships that when 2020 came along and COVID happened, that shriveled up in the corner and said, we're big dealerships, we'll be okay, we'll be fine, but did nothing. Didn't change their models or believe that they had the model that was going to work. And a lot of those places struggled. And some of them still continue to struggle now because they didn't see that pivot. And sometimes life gives you little pivots, and sometimes it gives you big pivots. And this was a big pivot that a lot of places didn't make the pivot. And so now they are hundreds of miles off course because of that pivot, because the customer base has changed. It has changed a lot in this 9 months or whatever since.
Is that crazy or what?
It really is.
Yeah.
It's amazing how different things are. And things that are accepted as normal, and the new normal, and the next normal, and the last normal, and all that. There are people who are willing to keep up with that change, and want to drive the next change, and there are people who are satisfied just taking whatever is given to them. I was listening to Dave Meltzer the other day, and he was talking about how he believes his eyes are projecting his reality.
Yes.
Rather than seeing what's in front of him, that he's projecting that out. I loved it when he said it. I was like, that's a cool way to look at life, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. I like that.
So anyways, a little tangent there.
I like it.
So, all right. So I'll jump to the question that you knew was going to come after you mentioned kiosks.
Oh boy, here we go.
So do you see kiosks as being a bigger part of actually servicing vehicles and in dealerships, outside of dealerships? As I'll be honest, when I first started thinking about kiosks, I said, okay, I can see it as a night drop option. It's a great night drop option because you never get the chance to try and upsell somebody at the night drop because they're filling out their envelope. It's like dropping the library book at night that was late going back. So and the kiosk at least would give you some upsell opportunities. But the pivot we were just talking about with COVID, I believe, has brought the kiosk forward as something that is much more viable in a service drive as an option for a lot of people. And never mind millennials. There's a whole new generation behind millennials that are driving into our dealerships that people seem to forget about, that would rather talk to the kiosk. Mm-hmm. And maybe there's some iterations on the kiosk that can make it better. I'm sure there are. One of the things that I thought of, and I think I mentioned to you at some point, was adding a video interface with it. So you're not just, if you are somebody who wants to drop off with a kiosk, but you're also somebody who would like to speak with somebody, it's one button, and you can. Everybody's comfortable with virtual now.
Yeah.
You can talk to somebody virtually on the screen if you wish.
Yep.
So do you think they're actually coming around?
Well, I think this. I think if we are going to practice what we preach, right, then we better be testing it. We better be open to it. And I think the answer to the question is basically, if it drives value, right, then yes. And so, are we testing that? I think here's two words that I would utilize in everything you're trying to do in your line of business, whether you're in automotive with Dave and I, or you're in another line of business. I think in our business, we want to provide overwhelming value. Overwhelming value. So Dave, if you were brand new with us and you were in your first minute of training, how long would it take for you to measure whether or not some interaction with a customer drove overwhelming value? And the answer is no time at all. You don't require training. It's innate. There's the word educate, Dave. The root Latin is educere. And in the English, educate means to impart. Okay, so I'm putting something in, okay, to you, to your brain, right? Teaching you a skill. But educere, did you know it literally means to draw out?
Interesting.
Yeah. So
I didn't know that, and I took 2 years of Latin in high school.
Bro, I knew you looked familiar. So you see it, so what I'm sharing with you is, we want to provide overwhelming value. And I think sometimes we can be successful at this. Sometimes we're not as successful. My answer to your question is you're not going to know until you try, right? And you should be testing it if you're really walking the talk. It's easy to measure because it's a perception. And to be honest with you, Dave, I think it might be better than any KPI that I can think of. Because let me ask you, if you wrote 120 ROs today in one of your stores, and that's probably realistic in one of the stores you oversee, and you knew right now talking to me that every one of those customers right now as they drove home experienced overwhelming value, how much more energy is in your step? How much more confidence is in the rest of your month? How much, am I right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And so it really is about getting down to that level. That's just, what are they perceiving? Okay, we send them to the cashier window. How can we overcome that? Well, we could probably send the link to their phone. Oh, okay. Is that available? Oh, yeah. Like 500 vendors offer it. Okay.
Right.
Well, they were updated and they really appreciated being updated. Can we provide that? Yes. Whatever. We walked and we showed them yellows and we told them they had some time before they needed to address it and why. Got it? I think somebody told me one time early in my career, it was my buddy Gary Peckham, his dad, and he was an interesting man. But whenever he talked, Dave, I always listened close. And he said, there's only two problems in life, knowing problems and doing problems. And I was a 20-something year old guy, and I just thought that was gold. And so I kind of always bucket stuff real quick in my brain, like, is that a knowing problem or a doing? So once I get you past the knowing, and you understand that our commander's intent here is to drive overwhelming value in our interactions with our customers. Now, so in battle, what did Tyson say, Dave? Everyone has a plan till you get punched in the mouth, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the bottom line is, I think some people listening are like, okay, what if my plan doesn't work? Bro, just get in the water. Okay. Just get wet and get started. If you've thought it out, you're not going to learn much until you test it. But the bottom line is, in the military, they know that their first line of approach typically doesn't work. So they have what's called the CI. And the CI is the commander's intent. So if our commander's intent is to take that hill over here to the west, and you and I are taught to flank left and flank right, but we run into an enemy, has the CI changed? No. What would happen if your CI was to drive overwhelming value in every interaction you have with your customers or clients? Well, guess what? Questions like the kiosk, how easy would that be, bro? Super easy. Got it?
Right.
So it's like high tech meets high touch. Hey, if that drives more value, heck yes. If it doesn't work, we don't lose any sleep because we know we've tried it, we've worked. So TBD,
Right.
my answer.
Yeah. And I'll take that answer. TBD. Is it? It obviously still remains to be seen. But if we are just going to blanket rule it out, then there is no TBD because it would be dead on arrival, and nobody would ever actually know whether that was the right thing to do or not. So,
agreed.
All right. So let's take one that's a little deeper here. So, there's a lot of managers out there that focus a lot of their time on doing things that don't matter or do not impact revenue as much as other activities that they could be doing. Not to say they're not important, but on that revenue sheet that you need to fill out every single day, it takes away from driving revenue. So an example would be they spend an hour putting a report together to show how many multi-point inspections didn't get done the day before in the shop, and put that up on the bulletin board. So they spent time putting that report together so that they can show techs, look, you missed 7 multi-point inspections yesterday with an average mileage of 62,000 miles on those cars, as opposed to taking that hour that they did that report and walking around to every tech and explaining to the technicians the importance of doing that multi-point inspection, both from a safety standpoint for our customers, for a liability limiter for our dealership, and for their pocketbooks, their flat rate hours. So why is it that so many managers want to spend the time doing things that don't actually drive revenue?
Okay, so I'm going to start with one word. I think the first word that comes to mind is confusion. Confusion. Peter Drucker said, he said the idea in leadership is to be effective more than efficient. So let's unpack that for a second, okay? So what is effective? I'm going to give you the most basic definition I can think of. It's doing the right things. Doing the right things. So what is efficient? It's doing things right. Let this sink, bro. You're smiling ear to ear right now, right? Okay. So let me ask you that question you're asking. What are they doing? Are they doing the first or the second? When they get buried in all this time focusing on things that quote unquote do not matter, are they focusing on the things that matter the most? Or are they focused on doing things right? They're focused on doing things right.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So, and we do spend a lot of time in that. So what I would say is, number one, start by prioritizing the big rocks first. I remember a workshop I went to with Stephen Covey in Houston years ago, and we came back from a break, and it was his second book called First Things First. And it was basically time management, the quadrants, urgent, important. Did you ever see that?
Yep,
okay,
absolutely.
Good. So we come back and there's this big glass vase, right? I mean, like 3 feet tall, and it's filled with like 5-inch Colorado River rocks. Okay. And it's just full. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. And so he's like, everybody sits down, 2,500 people in this deal. And he said, hey, do you think this thing's full? And everybody's, yes, so he nods, he reaches under the table, he grabs a bucket. It's like aluminum, so you couldn't see in it. And he pours it over, and out comes gravel. And he's like shaking it over the gaps between River Rock, and everybody kind of chuckles. And he's like, hey, do you think it's full? Yeah. And he nods, same deal. And everybody chuckles. He grabs another bucket, pours it over, it's sand. And now I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And do you think it's full? And now it's only like 25% of the room will participate. Nobody wants to be wrong. He nods, he reaches down, grabs a bucket, pours it over. It's water. So water over the sand, over the gravel, over the rock in the same vase. And now the water actually is run over the top. I never forget this. And he said, is it full now? And like some guy, makes a wise comment. He's like, unless food coloring counts, and yeah. And so he said, what's interesting about that exercise? If you don't start with the river rock, you can never get the river rock in there. Dave. So to me, it's a couple things. Number one, I want to be effective. So to be effective, number one, you got to be a leader. I would tell you that Um, the easiest way to know if someone was a leader, true leader, and again, don't take offense to this, okay? I know, right? Okay, these are kind of lessons I've learned through life. I like to know what people did when they were young. I've kind of learned from some good mentors that have taught me this stuff. And um, when you were 9, 10 years old, running around on the playground, in the classroom, in sports, if you led in any fashion, I didn't say you were the best player, but if you've led, I'm telling you, leading is very natural to you. And if you didn't, if you were a meaningful player, a strong player, but you didn't care about organizing it or leading it or whatever, and I'm not even talking about winning. Like winning might have been what you were doing while you were leading. It doesn't matter if you won or lost, but it's that those people know. So if I don't see that in a person, I have people here that don't have that. They didn't do that, and they are great managers. And I'm very careful not to put them in a spot where they have to lead, because when you lead, you have to edge a seer, Dave.
Yeah.
You have to be, got it?
Draw it out.
You got to be able to draw it out. Okay. You're basically trying to get people to do things willingly. But as a manager, you're making people, true or false, making people, got it? So I could go on and on this thing, but I think another tip I would give anyone listening is anybody actually listening to us at some point here? I'm just kidding. Jason Jennings had a book, and it was called First Things. No, it's called Less is More. And Jason just passed this year. In fact, I was going to be with him this spring, a month before COVID, and then he ended up passing away suddenly. And he was super fit and great author. But his what he learned from leading businesses is they all asked the same thing. They didn't do what Nike does, just do it. So when there's a change in business, like kiosks, he said, the best businesses don't just go add kiosks. They always ask this question: WTGBR FDT. WT, what's the good business reason for doing this? They challenge every decision, right? And so it's like, okay, this fits our original deal here, or no, that's not us yet, because our return to our customer, our shareholders, is this. So I think it's a few things. It's effective versus efficient. I think you got to prioritize well, and and by the way, I have people that are in senior positions occasionally that they need help prioritizing, Dave. Like how they're looking at the business is like, bro, that's not the biggest rock. Think about it. Why would that be? Oh yeah, I guess so. So some people there's a little bit of compliance coming out. And again, that's more managerial than it is leadership. So that's a long answer, brother, but does that help you?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you were saying that, I think one of the things that comes to light as you bring that stuff out is probably one of the issues in the automotive business is that the manager in a lot of stores is looked at to be a leader, and yet doesn't necessarily have those traits of a leader, and number two, never received any training to go to that position. And so to me, a lot of times I look at those people who are doing those reports and are great with the reports as people who are fearful to do anything else, because they know they can be effective doing the reports, but I think they also are fearful of having to actually go out to the team and try to lead that team.
Yeah, at Traver Tech, I had to write 9 principles for Toyota one year, and they're still around. So these are 9 principles for effective business development. And one of them I wrote was, greater is he who can get 10 people to do their job than he who does the job of 10 people. And we lived in an era back in the 90s and even the 80s where it was like, oh, I'm the man. I got this. Here, let me handle it. And I used to tell sales managers in workshops, say, look, if you're the man, eventually you're a dead man. The idea is to teach them to fish, man. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to applaud a team. And so you got to draw that out of them. You want to lead them. So yeah, we're on the same page. We're kind of learning from that same template, I think.
Yeah, yeah. There's still a lot of people out there that believe that doing everything themselves is making them the hero and the best manager, or whatever they want to call themselves. When it's completely the opposite. It's typically the person who kind of looks like they're not doing much. That probably has put a team together that is performing well.
You know what? I'm going to admit something to you. I think we learn more from people's mistakes than we do from their successes. So I'll tell you a mistake I made. When I started Traver Tech, I wanted to be this great, I don't know, speaker, trainer, whatever, right? I mean, that was my hallucination, right? And I got into it the first 6, 7 months, and I knew right away, I was like, I got to duplicate myself. There's no way. There is no way. And so I changed how I was doing everything. I also read a book in '86 that probably was a seed that had now grown in my brain. And it was The E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
Yes.
And Gerber rewrites it in 2000, The E-Myth Revisited. But brother, that was in me early. And so that whole concept of being on instead of in my business
Right.
was already becoming a reality, So if you are somebody listening to this and you're like, hey guys, but I have to do it all. Listen, whoever you are, I understand. I've been there. Dave's been there. I think our advice is recognize the pattern and know that long term, that's not in your best interest. And the other thing is those people that are in your charge, some people say I'm in charge of, that's great. But I would rather look at my coworkers as people who have placed themselves in my charge. They've entrusted, they're trusting me to try and make good decisions. Got it? Build a moat around our, now that doesn't mean I'm going to pull it off, but that means there's hey, look, we're trusting that leadership and we're engaged and we want to support these decisions. So to me, you should recognize that pattern and have that on your short list. That should be one of those river rocks on your short list. It's like, hey, I'm going to get better at this. I'm going to duplicate this. And by the way, you say, well, you know how service managers get blown out of stores? Guess what? When you figure out how to do this, you take this with you.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Then you get invited into stores, not blown out of stores.
Yes.
So
that's right.
yeah. And yeah, I mean, you talk about in charge. I always say that I am responsible for my team. I'm not in charge of my team. I'm responsible for my team.
Same vibe right there. I love it.
Yep, absolutely. All right, John, this has been an awesome conversation. So I'll finish up with one last question. If you had to give a list of 3 things that somebody would do every single day to have a successful business, what would those 3 things be?
Well, I've given you one, and that is understand the goal is to be effective more than efficient. Start there. Be effective. Do the right things, right? I think number 2 is get the facts and know your numbers. There's a lot of folks that don't know their numbers. You know what I'm saying? And oh, by the way, I love saying this, but when I got in the car business and when you got in the car business, we were in 2 different states, but they both told us the same thing. Hey guys, it's a numbers game. True or false, Dave?
Very true.
Yeah, and it's still a numbers game, but here's the thing: the numbers do evolve, folks. You know what I mean? Like that old absorption number, it still kind of exists, but it's not really the same thing. It's market share.
Yeah.
Right. And so it is a number, but you need to pay attention. And so test the numbers, get the facts. And I love the facts, even when they're not in my, hey, John, that's a D-. Okay. Well, guess what? I got a chance to work my way towards a B+. Here we go. Right.
Yes.
I got to know. And I think the third thing, you said 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll give you the third thing. And this is one of my favorite things to say around here. These are the 2 questions you should be asking yourself every day. I don't care whether you're the newest person on the team or you own the joint or anybody in between. You have a division, you have a group, you have a platform, you have the East Coast, whatever. Here it is. 2 things you should be asking every day. What do they want me to do? And how do I do it well? What do they want me to do? I want to tell you a quick story. We expanded our offices here about 1.5 years ago, almost 2 years now. We're about 55, just shy of 60,000 square feet here in Richardson, just northeast corner of Dallas. And it's a nice facility, Dave. I mean, we try and make it feel like home for everybody in certain ways. But how did we get there? Well, one of the indicators for me is during lunch hour, we moved into our new building here. It was like 20,000 square feet, really nice. And the cafeteria, I put a live company kitchen on the wall, right? And so you could get fresh salads and sandwiches. You didn't have to leave the facility if you didn't want. And in the contact center part of our business, we had people that just didn't have a chance to do that. And it's like, okay, so we need to do that. So as I would go in the lunchroom, I would notice as we grew, there was no room, brother. It was like uncomfortable. Like lunch was the low point of the day, and it shouldn't be. So I'm asking myself every day automatically, what do they want me to do? And I'm literally in my head, I'm like, Traver, you need to get them more cafeteria space. The other thing I saw is outside on our sidewalks, we have a really nice office park. They would sit, our staff sometimes would sit on the curb on the phone during their break. So they're talking to their spouse or whatever, right? And like in Texas, I don't know if you know this or not, but it gets hot here and in the summer. And so I would see that and it's, what do they want me to do? And it's like, you need to figure something out there. So when we did our expansion, we have a cafeteria that seats, I don't know, 130 or some people. Ceilings are 14 foot high. We put 4 big screen TVs on the wall and have stuff running at all times. We have a patio outside. And then we built out phone booths that have a separate area. And it's kind of like a farmhouse rustic vibe with a phone charger, a table, chair in it. And then like when we moved into it, hardly anybody was using the phone booths. And I was like, hey, what's going on? And they said, well, the phones don't really get good reception in there. I was like, okay, well, we got to fix that. What do they want me to do? You know? And so they're like, well, it's like $7,000 to put a booster. I said, we'll get a $7,000 booster. But so now, you know, they got a big cap. So to me, it's like, are we asking those questions? That's the third thing. And if you'll just listen, you can't always do it all, but you'll know what's important. So what do they want me to do? And then how do I do it well? And by the way, I say this to our staff, Dave. I say the same thing to anybody who has, you know, they have a platform for us, they're handling a region, or they're in client services, or they're handling live interactions with customers, or they're rolling out software. Hey, what do they want me to do? They want me to engage with this client. They want me to engage with this customer. They want me to make sure all their questions are, how do I do it well? I got to have the right attitude. I got to be that's on you. Make sense?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So effective versus efficient. Get the facts, know your numbers, and what do they want me to do? How do I do it well? Those 3 things will serve you well.
That's awesome. That can serve you well in life, not just business. I ask that from business standpoint, but you could certainly apply that to your life also. John, it has been an awesome conversation. Time has flown by here. I really, really appreciate you spending some time with us and imparting us with some of your wisdom. And I'm sure we will have you back for a follow-up visit.
Awesome, Dave. It's always a pleasure to run with you. I'm a big fan of yours, and thanks for having us on the podcast.
Awesome. It was great to have you. Take care. Another information-packed session of the Fixed Ops Mastermind podcast is in the books. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. Remember to download Fixed Ops Mastermind podcast on your favorite podcast app and to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. We thank again our sponsors, Dynatron Software and Traver Connect. Make sure you guys visit them. They've got some incredible products to help your dealership excel. Until next time, thanks for joining us.